There's a war inside you. One part craves peace, purpose, and stability. The other finds a way to burn it all down the moment it arrives. You finally find someone who loves you, and you push them away. You begin building something meaningful, and suddenly you're drowning in excuses, distractions, and self-doubt. And you whisper to yourself in shame, "What's wrong with me?" But here's the truth. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are not cursed. You are unconscious. And until you face the parts of you that live in the dark, those silent saboteurs, you will continue to betray your own potential over and over again. Just like Marcus. He was brilliant, sharp-minded, driven, full of potential. He had dreams of building his own design agency. He started strong. Late nights, big ideas, clients trickling in. Then, just as momentum built, he vanished. Emails unanswered, deadlines missed, projects abandoned. When asked, he blamed burnout, bad timing, even fate. But deep down, he knew. As a child, Marcus's creativity was mocked, his father calling it a waste of time, his teachers brushing him aside. So part of him learned, don't be too visible. Don't try too hard. They'll just tear you down. That belief lived in him like a ghost. So every time success got too close, every time his light began to shine, his shadow would flick the switch, quietly, consistently, without fail. Until one night, sitting in his cluttered apartment, surrounded by half-finished projects and unopened letters, he whispered, "Why do I keep doing this to myself?" That night, for the first time, he didn't reach for distraction. He sat in the silence, and he listened. That's when everything changed. He realized he wasn't sabotaging because he hated himself. He was sabotaging because a younger version of him was still scared. And that version wasn't a villain. He was just waiting to be seen. One, you're not broken, you're split. There's a version of you the world sees, strong, kind, ambitious. And there's another version, angry, fearful, ashamed. You hide it. But it never really leaves. Carl Jung called this the shadow. The parts of ourselves we've rejected, buried, or disowned. You think you're failing because you're weak? Number. You're failing because your mind is split, and that inner conflict is draining your soul. Just like Naomi. By day, she was a therapist, calm, composed, insightful. She helped people untangle their pain, their trauma, their confusion. But by night, when the world got quiet, Naomi couldn't even look at herself in the mirror. She had this aching dream to become a writer, to tell stories that healed people the way books once healed her. But every time she sat down to write, her hands froze, her thoughts spiraled. Who do you think you are? You're not good enough. You're just pretending. One part of her was full of vision and passion. The other, a ruthless inner critic sharpened by years of needing to be perfect. And the war between those two voices exhausted her. She wasn't lazy. She wasn't weak. She was in a civil war with herself, and neither side was winning. One night, after yet another deleted manuscript and another glass of wine, she broke down. Not in frustration, but in surrender. She closed her eyes, placed her hand on her heart, and whispered, "I see both of you. The dreamer, the protector. You've both been trying to keep me safe, but I don't want to fight anymore." That moment didn't solve everything, but it was the beginning of a ceasefire. And in the silence that followed, she began to write, not to prove anything, but to become whole. 2. The shadow always wins until it's seen, Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Every time you self-sabotage, it's not random. It's the unconscious reclaiming control. It's the wounds you never healed, acting as decision-makers behind the curtain. That missed opportunity, that toxic cycle you keep repeating, that's your shadow, not your stupidity. It's like what happened to Daniel. He was a brilliant engineer, top of his class, sharp mind, respected at work. But every time a leadership opportunity came his way, he'd shrink. He'd forget to apply. He'd show up late to critical meetings. On the surface, it looked like carelessness. But underneath, it was the voice of a father who never thought he'd amount to anything. A childhood where praise only came through performance, and love was always conditional. So now success felt threatening, because rising meant exposure, rising meant risking failure, and his unconscious would rather sabotage him than face that shame again. Daniel didn't need another productivity hack. He needed to sit with the part of himself that believed he wasn't worthy of being seen. He had to grieve the wounds of a boy who learned to hide, and teach that boy it was finally safe to lead. 3. You call it chaos. Your mind calls it home. Here's the paradox. Some people aren't afraid of failure. They're afraid of peace. Why? Because chaos is familiar. Because if you grew up in dysfunction, safety feels suspicious. So the moment life gets quiet, calm, or good, you unconsciously stir the pot. You pick fights. You procrastinate. You wreck your progress. Not because you're reckless, but because your nervous system believes that calm is dangerous and conflict is home. 4. When the inner child becomes the inner saboteur, self-sabotage is often a child's strategy, wrapped in an adult's disguise. Imagine a child who learned that being visible meant getting hurt, that love was conditional, that mistakes meant punishment, not growth. That child grew up, but the strategy didn't. So now when you get close to success, your inner child whispers, hide. When someone gets too close, push them away. When peace comes, run. You're not flawed, you're faithful to a version of yourself that learned to survive, not to thrive. 5. The devil you know. Why do we repeat what we hate? Because deep down, your unconscious would rather suffer predictably than heal unpredictably. It's like the Israelites in the desert, freed from Egypt, but still longing for slavery. At least we knew what to expect there, they said. You sabotage yourself, not because you want pain, but because at least pain is familiar. Healing? That's a terrifying unknown. 6th projection, how you fight yourself in other people. Self-sabotage doesn't always look like failure. Sometimes it looks like attacking others for the very flaws you deny in yourself. You accuse others of arrogance because you're ashamed of your own pride. You hate their ambition because you've buried your own dreams. You're not reacting to them. You're reacting to a reflection. The battlefield isn't out there. It's in you. 7. Triggers are treasure maps. What angers you, what scares you, what you instantly deny, dismiss, or mock, that's where your gold is buried. Your triggers are treasure maps. Every time you overreact, it's not a weakness, it's a signal pointing to something unresolved. Follow the pain. It knows the way. 8. Resistance isn't weakness. It's a signal you want to grow. But you feel this invisible force pulling you back. That's not laziness. That's resistance. Stephen Pressfield called it resistance, with a capital R. Jung called it the counter-self. It's the ancient part of you trying to protect you from exposure, change, and vulnerability. It's not trying to ruin your life. It's trying to keep you safe, based on outdated programming. What you call sabotage might actually be protection. Misguided, yes, but loyal. 9. Self-sabotage is misguided loyalty. Your unconscious is loyal to the stories it was told when you were helpless. Stories like, you're not enough. You must earn love. Success will isolate you. Authenticity is dangerous. So when you start to break those stories by growing, your mind panics. It thinks you're betraying your tribe, your identity, your old self. So it pulls you back, not out of hate, but out of misplaced loyalty. 10. The ego's death feels like your own. To change is to die, not literally, but psychologically. The ego clings to what it knows. So when you try to evolve, it screams, it resists, it creates sabotage, not because you're cursed, but because the death of who you were feels like the death of everything. But here's the paradox. The more you cling, the more you suffer. True healing feels like dying, because you're not just breaking habits, you're burying old selves. 11th, integration over perfection. You don't need to kill the shadow. You need to befriend it. The goal isn't to become some flawless, ever-confident machine. That's fantasy. The goal is integration. To say to your fear, you belong. To your shame, I see you. To your younger self, you did your best. That's what makes you whole. Not the absence of sabotage, but the presence of self-compassion. 12. Wholeness is your birthright. You are not your past. You are not your patterns. You are not your pain. You are the one who can observe them all and choose something new. That's what Jung meant by individuation, not perfection, but wholeness. And that is your mission now. Not to fix yourself, but to face yourself. Not to kill the old you, but to understand them. Not to silence the shadow, but to speak with it. Because when you do, the sabotage stops, and something greater begins. So the next time you feel yourself slipping, ask yourself, what part of me is crying out to be seen? And will you have the courage to listen? Let the world chase perfection. You chase wholeness. That's where your power is. That's where your freedom begins.